So here's a question: should it be called a review, a first view, or just an opinion? What do you say we dive into it and find out? All right, guys, welcome back to Rolling with T-Bone. As we roll down the road on the Harley-Davidson V-Rod, I guess today's video is going to be just a real quick short-term review of just a couple of impressions that the motorcycle has given me. Of course, I haven't ridden it enough to give any kind of long-term review on it yet, but I do want to go ahead and try to give some kind of, you know, just what my random thoughts are, just generally what I think about the little bike. First impressions were, you look at this bike just at first glance, and if you're used to riding bigger cruiser bikes like the Fat Boy or a Dyna or a Softail, you look at this bike and you go, man, that's a small bike. It's a little bitty bike. I kind of looked at it first as a slammed, lowered Sportster. Not long after I set my butt into the saddle for the first time and took off down the road on it, it didn't take long after that until I determined that outside of just being a small framed Harley-Davidson, this motorcycle has absolutely nothing else in common with a Harley-Davidson Sportster. This bike right here, I was pleasantly surprised with this motorcycle. Actually, I could go even farther to say I was shocked with this motorcycle, because, and that's a good thing, I was pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly caught off guard when it comes to this motorcycle, because this motorcycle has plenty of power, plenty of torque. Essentially it is what it was built by Harley-Davidson to be, and that's just a straightforward, no frills hot rod. It wasn't built to be, of course, I've really grown to love the looks of this bike. I think it's a great looking bike. The black cherry paint that's on it, a Harley-Davidson black cherry, a beautiful paint, got an amazing sound, plenty of chrome, and it's got plenty of zoom. And to be honest with you guys, when I first saw this bike, when they very first came out, I'm like a lot of jaded Harley-Davidson riders, motorcycle riders, not just Harley-Davidson riders, but I was like a lot of jaded motorcycle riders that looked at this and went, has Harley-Davidson completely lost all their mind? Have they taken leave of their senses? Like I said, pleasantly surprised when I first rode it. I started getting it, if that makes sense, because I have found in owning the bigger Harleys like the Fat Boy and the Dyna, and riding bigger motorcycles all my life, 1500, 1600 cc's. This bike right here being just a smaller framed Harley Davidson. You think, well, you know, it's built for economics. No, this bike, you get on this bike, the gas hand outruns the speedometer, and they both move fast and far in a short amount of time. Because this bike, this isn't the tank, it's a false tank. The tank is actually under the seat, which was built, the only thing that I can say about that makes sense to me, to make me understand it, is that they tried to keep the center of gravity low on this bike for the hot rod look. Fuel injected, this is the first, not the first fuel injected bike I've ever ridden. Man, this thing's throaty. Clutchy and throaty. It's ready. This is not the first fuel injected bike I've ever ridden, but this is the first fuel injected bike I've ever spent any time messing with, because every bike I've ever owned has been carbureted. I kind of dig the fuel injection system. I'm not gonna lie, the not having to worry about pulling a choke and waiting 10 minutes for it to warm up. My Dyna, if you don't ride that Dyna regularly, when you first go to crank that bike, it's carbureted. You got to choke it, and sometimes even after it sits there for 3 or 4 minutes warming up with the choke on, and you go to kill the choke, the bike will die. It's just cold nature. So dealing with the fuel injection system has been pretty nice. And if you see that light on the dashboard, that's actually the gas light. So far I've gotten 58 miles and 58.8 miles, 9 miles, 58.9 miles to 1 tank of gas, and it's just between quarter and the mark before an empty. It's between a quarter and empty, nearly. With this being a fuel injected bike, there's no petcock, so it doesn't have a reserve. When you run out, you run out. So that is kind of a drawback for me, not having the petcock, not having a reserve. But for the power that this motorcycle has, and for the things that this motorcycle is able to do, it's a pretty fair trade-off to get rid of some of the conveniences for what this bike actually offers. And this thing has Vance & Hines exhaust on it. Originally came with X-Cross exhaust on it. I've listened to them on videos, listened to the factory exhaust ones, and they sound okay. But the one with the Vance & Hines on it, this one right here, got this Vance & Hines, this thing sounds good. But now I'd imagine if you're riding behind it in a open-faced helmet and you don't have your ears plugged, it would probably be it would start to get kind of obnoxious, because it gets louder. The more you twist the throttle, the louder it gets. And but what I like about that too is that all the sound goes out the back of the exhaust. With some Harleys, it feels like it rattles you all the way from the front to the back. This one, pretty well much all the sound goes out the back, and I like that. Short-term review, guys, if you get a chance to own one of these bikes, you know, if you get a chance to buy one, because these bikes are still bringing premium money. Don't get that twisted. These bikes are still bringing premium money. But if you were looking for a bike to be your first bike, I would not recommend this. I would say start out on a Sportster and then go to a V-Rod. And there's a reason that I say that, is because this bike right here, I don't care how many Sportsters you've ridden, I don't care how many big twin Harleys you've ridden, the torque on this motorcycle is going to catch you off guard when you first bust that throttle open. Of course, now I would not want to jump on this bike and ride to the bottom of Florida or ride all the way up north. This bike would not seem to me like it would be, you know, the most comfortable bike on a long ride, which I say that, and I put about 60 miles on it. You know, a little over 60 miles. Not all at once, but I haven't gotten off of it cussing it, and I haven't gotten off of it, you know, holding my back. Sorry about that. Pollen's getting to me. But I'll be honest with you, I have gotten off this bike thinking, wow, yeah, you know, you can, you got to ride it to understand it, if that makes sense. Because like I said, guys, this thing sounds amazing. And let me show you something. Just listen. It's got a beat, boys, and I can dance to it. Yeah, that was triple digits right there, guys. Woo. Yeah, it's got a beat I can dance to. We hit triple digits right there. But you heard the sound at this bike. This thing, man, and I'm telling you, that torque. And here's the thing, guys. If you can see the tachometer, I'm not sure how good you can pick that up through this camera. This thing doesn't redline until 9 grand. Right there, as I watched the tachometer as I was taking off, the highest I got it through 4 gears was 7 grand. I still had 2 more grand to go and a bunch of throttle left and gears. I had 2 more grand to go and a whole nother gear to get through, and I was well into triple digits right there. So that's that's why they call it the V-Rod. It's a hot rod. This, you know, this ain't your grandpa's hot rod. This ain't the you know, this ain't the old panhead, shovelhead, first year Evos that had cams in them and everything. This is a new age. This was the, starting in 2002, this was the new age hot rod. This was a borderline bike. But as far as riding it, I enjoy riding it. The bike's not heavy. It's got the 1200 Revolution Max engine, which is not the same as a 1200 Evo engine. Totally different engine. This is a one-of-a-kind engine sitting in this motorcycle. This is a fresh from scratch build by Harley Davidson. So that's why this bike has a high rev limit. You can hit triple digits. I never even came close to a rev limiter. And it has a stage 1 Screaming Eagle package on it. Now, a little computer box about yay big, Screaming Eagle, that's hooked into it. They took the regular ECU out of it and programmed the stage 1 Screaming Eagle to it. So yeah, this bike right here, this bike right here moves. Now, am I saying it's the fastest thing on the road? No. There's plenty of crotch rockets out there that'll smoke this thing, but they'll know I was there, if that makes sense. It won't be a walk away, I don't believe. I don't believe it would just be them walking off and leaving me. But first impressions, like I said, the bike is growing on me. There is no borderline with these motorcycles. People either love them or they hate them. I'm starting to warm up to this a lot more. Of course, in the last few videos, I've been riding the Blue Moon, so I really haven't given this one the attention for videos that I should be. And I've got other people want me to come and ride their bikes for videos. And in a minute, we'll talk about another first that happened to me just recently. It's the first time it's ever happened to me. And to be honest with you, it threw me off my feet for a couple of days because I didn't know how to react to it. But we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But right now, my impression is, if you like the style of it, the power's there. I have no reason at all to tell you not to buy a Harley Davidson V-Rod. Now, if you want to be super picky over everything on a motorcycle, if it has to have just specifically everything that you want, don't buy Harley-Davidson V-Rod. Because I have looked into the aftermarket world doing research on these motorcycles. There is a big aftermarket, but it's geared specifically for speed. There's not a whole lot of aftermarket that's geared for comfort in the V-Rod world. So understand that, and understand that this isn't a Sportster. If a Sportster's on one side of the world, this is directly on the opposite side of the world, doing its own thing. Outside of the sound, outside of the name and the way it sounds are about the only two things that actually identify this motorcycle as a Harley-Davidson. Because you would see this bike out on the road, and if you didn't know that Harley-Davidson had built this bike, if you didn't know that Harley-Davidson had built a V-Rod, then you would never believe that this bike was a Harley-Davidson. That's how far off of the grid, how far away from the spectrum Harley-Davidson went to build this motorcycle. Alright guys, got a little go-go juice. I don't like that gas light being on and the gas hand being all the way to the bottom. That's kind of scary. And it's something that's, I mean, it's natural. Look, when you have a bike that don't have a gas hand on it to a bike that does have a gas hand on it, you start watching the gas hand. But now, I said that something had happened to me the other day that was new to me. It was something that was totally foreign to me. It had never happened to me before. But I was going to shoot a content video on a different motorcycle. I was going to ride Jay's ZX14, his Busa Killer, the Kawasaki Ninja ZX14. I was going to ride it and then shoot a content video on it. Guys, something happened to me that's never happened to me before, so it was very strange that it did happen to me. It was very odd. I sit down on the motorcycle. I had Jay just turn it around for me. He does this weird trick with the kickstand where he just spins the bike around on the kickstand. I thought that'd save me from having to dig around in the gravel. But what happened to me was, as soon as I sit down on that motorcycle, immediately I felt uncomfortable. And anytime I feel uncomfortable with anything, I don't pursue it. But guys, I felt uncomfortable on that motorcycle so fast that it caught me off guard. Not the power of it. I've ridden course fast bikes. I'm a triple digit rider, can do it. I don't know what it was. Jay maybe explained that it might have been the tank, because the tank comes up real high and you've got to stretch to get. I'm not sure what it was, but as soon as I sat on that motorcycle, I picked it up. I stood it up and I immediately felt uncomfortable. I was a little bitty kid having to prop up on the back porch of my dad's house to take off to ride a motorcycle because I was too short to ride the street bike he bought me. So that is the first time that I've ever sat on a motorcycle and felt uncomfortable. And I've sitting on a few motorcycles in my lifetime and felt nervous because it's an expensive motorcycle. It didn't belong to me. I didn't want to tear up somebody else's motorcycle. But I wasn't scared. But for whatever reason, I just felt uncomfortable. So I got back off the bike. Jay said, "What's wrong?" And I told him, I said, I could force myself to ride your bike, and I could probably make the content, shoot the trip, and be fine. But that was so foreign to me that it caught me off guard so much that I don't believe in my own mind that I could have ever gotten comfortable enough to enjoy what the bike was. So I just chose not to ride it. And like I said, guys, that's totally foreign to me. That has never ever happened to me before. I've ridden bikes that were way too big for me, heavy bikes, but for whatever reason, as soon as I sit on that bike, and it wasn't something that I sat there looking at it and began to become uncomfortable. I sat down on it and I was immediately uncomfortable. And I told him, I said, dude, I appreciate the fact that you want me to ride your bike. That is awesome that you trust me to ride your bike, but I'm telling you, I do not feel comfortable on this motorcycle, so I choose not to ride your bike. And he was disappointed because he really wanted me to make content on it, give my impression on it, and I wanted to do it, but I was caught off guard. I know I keep saying that, but that's the only way I can explain it. I was caught off guard. That has never ever happened to me with any other motorcycle before, ever. I've never sat on a motorcycle and immediately felt uncomfortable. Like I said, I have felt nervous before, but I have never ever felt that uncomfortable immediately. So that was kind of new to me. I still don't know what to think about it. I still don't, it's kind of one of them deals where people will say, well, just go ride it and you'll get over that. If I would have sat on the bike and psyched myself out, that would have been one thing. I didn't psych myself out. I didn't have time to psych myself out. Just the way I felt sitting on that motorcycle made me uncomfortable with it. That's the first ZX14 that I've ever sat on. I actually owned the ZX12 back in the 90s. I had the 1200R Ninja for a short amount of time, rode it, loved it. Fast bike, but I didn't. Red tail hawk just flew across my face. No. But anyway, when something like that happens to you, it's hard to explain how it makes you feel. And it's hard to explain why it makes me feel that way, because I don't understand it, because it's never happened to me before. So I can't give you anything like that, but I wanted to share that with you. Now, most people would say, well, I would have kept that to myself. I wouldn't have told nobody that. That's not what I want what we're doing here to be. If I'm good with something, I want y'all to know it. If I'm not good with something, I want y'all to know it. I want to share my successes with you, but I want you to understand my failures too. Because maybe you have sat on a motorcycle and immediately felt uncomfortable. So maybe you know what I felt. Maybe you can explain why it was you felt like you felt uncomfortable immediately. Like I said, it's foreign to me. It's new. That has never ever happened to me before. So I can't give you an explanation, guys. I just know it was weird. It was odd. But that's neither here nor there. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Short-term review on the V-Rod. The review being ride one, find out what side of the fence you sit on with it. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Could you love it? Could you hate it? Of course, I'll do a long-term review after I ride it for a little while. I still got to come up with a name for it. I haven't named it yet. Whatever name I give it probably won't stick anyway, but I'll figure it out. It'll come to me. But guys, I'll tell you what, like, comment, share. Find us on Instagram, YouTube, right here on Facebook, right here on YouTube. Share the video, like, comment. And guys, until the next time, this has been Rolling with T-Bone. I am T-Bone. You guys take care of yourselves and each other. GoPro, stop recording.